watching Canada's Weather Network. To help you plan your activities in the coming days, here are the short and long-term forecasts for your area. To upload your photos and videos, visit upload.theweathernetwork.com. Want to access your weather at any time? Search for the Weather Network in your TV app store and access your weather today.
All right, very good morning to you. It is Monday, November the 11th, Remembrance Day. And you're watching In the Know with Chris and Nadine. And, in Ottawa, of course, there'll be a lot of ceremonies at Senate throughout the country. The biggest one of all, though, will be in the nation's capital. And we'll have your 11 a.m. forecast to be sure.
Yeah, lest we forget. And in this edition of In the Know, Chris,
yes,
we're going back to 1943, and we're learning about the installation of an automatic weather station that aided the troops in the fight for freedom.
Know yourself and know the weather, and you'll win the war.
In October 1943, a German U-boat sails to the coast of Labrador in what was then the British Dominion of Newfoundland to install this, an automatic battery-powered weather station. The goal of this secretive mission? Gather crucial meteorological data about the North Atlantic, which in theory could help plan attacks on Canadian aid convoys headed to England.
Because Germany was blockaded early on in the war, they had limited resources for predicting weather. They had their own weather stations, but they didn't have the access to the information that the Allies had, especially when it came to the convoys. Now, the key thing with the Germans is they want to kill the convoys, because if they starve England, they can't fight that war.
Unfortunately for the Germans, the station stopped working shortly after it was installed, but it remains an example of just how significant an influence the weather had on outcomes in the Second World War. As this naval war history expert explains, the Allies were able to set up stations in places like Greenland and Iceland, which helped them plan operations to coincide with good weather. If Germany had had access to that same information, it may have been able to better predict where and when those convoys were traveling.
Not having the weather information puts you at a disadvantage because, of course, the Allies would know when the weather was going to get rough and they'd make accommodation for that.
What's maybe most fascinating about this story, the weather station's existence was actually largely unknown on this side of the Atlantic until it was accidentally discovered by a geographer in 1977, more than 30 years later. Now it sits as part of the permanent collection at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa, a testament to one of the only known Nazi operations that actually took place on North American soil.
There you go. So we continue to honor those who have served and those who continue to serve. And thank you, Connor O'Donovan, for that story. Here's your 11 a.m. forecast, Nadine. So we picked local times, showing you the precipitation, temperatures for around that time. Keep in mind, it's going to be rather windy in places like Ontario and certainly into BC and across northern Ontario, getting some snow and wind.
Yep, and parts of eastern Canada will be into, like you said, Chris, that snow and wind. We've got some of those showers moving across the Maritimes. Tonight, again, across parts of Ontario, we had some severe weather that rolled through southern Ontario last evening.
Yeah, severe thunderstorm warnings, even tornado warnings as well. So we're going to, through the light of day, find out if there was any, damage and to what extent. You'll notice tomorrow will be a lot calmer, and then we'll likely get into some more rain showers later in the week. But this afternoon, 13 in Toronto, 13 in Halifax, 13 in Montreal.
Yep. And now in terms of those winds, Chris, that's going to be another component for today. We've got some special weather statements for areas northwest of Toronto. Watch those blustery winds for today. There'll be a little bit on the windy side as we head through tomorrow morning into southern Quebec. And as we head toward the middle of the week, we're watching for those winds to really pick up across Atlantic Canada. You see, they're a little bit breezy as we head through this evening, but as we head into Wednesday, that's really the day when we start to see those winds increasing across the region. Yeah,
strengthening once again across Newfoundland. And of course, you had a very windy weekend in your own right. Meanwhile, snow in the alpine regions, heavy rain in the lower elevations, and strong winds this morning, especially the rain for the lower mainland. And we've got another storm system coming in later in the week as well.
And for Western Canada, taking a look at some of the conditions across the region as we head through this afternoon. Relatively quiet in the prairies.